Oh, all right. All right. Just got in from riding the Harley, downtown Austin.
Nice.
Ayin Thropos here. Welcome to another exciting episode. You don't know, huh? So don't act like you do. Because then something bad might happen to you. Tonight on the show we have Kevin Trimmel, who's been a guest on our show before. He's a young man who's rising up in popularity very quickly, not because that's what he's not that he's seeking popularity, but because of his information regarding the secret space program is fundamental to the community. So let's see if we got him on it. Let's give old Kevin a call right here.
Where I see some monsters, I reckon where I see some freaks. I reckon where I see some monsters, I reckon them are Jesus freaks. I reckon see some freaks. I reckon.
Kevin, are you with us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Awesome, man. Just got in from a bike ride, riding my Harley down there in downtown Austin. Thanks for making time to see me tonight.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad we could just do it on the fly. Sometimes that works better that way.
Yeah, perfect. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm a Canadian, so we had Thanksgiving first weekend in October.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yes, it was good.
hopefully you had a good day off or something like that today. All right.
Yep.
Well, you know, we kind of had an introductory type deal in our first video where you introduced us to some of the concepts of the secret space program. And as you know, I've had your buddy Anthony Zender on the program, and I've also had Tony Rodriguez on the program. And there's a young lady, her name might be Eva or something. I have not had her on the program, but I'm trying to. She's a very knowledgeable. She's a little blonde lady. She's been on the on a couple of shows with Tony Rodriguez. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't know her.
Oh, okay. Well, if I said her name, you would undoubtedly know who she was, because I think she's a well-known expert in this area. For those of the viewers that didn't see our first episode together, you have been in contact somehow with, I don't want to say aliens, but like you've seen a UFO and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yes, I have seen a UFO, an unidentified flying object. It was man-made. It was the white TR-3. I still consider that a UFO because it's not something that.
Well, it sounds like it was identified then. If it's a TR-3.
Yeah, it was the scaled down version the Canadian forces and British Commonwealth allies to the American Navy secret space program. They have this scaled down TR3. It's about 1/3 the size of the black triangle that everyone's familiar with, and I believe it also has a different propulsion system. But that scaled down version, I've seen it 6 times, and so to me that's it's not alien. I mean, it's reverse engineered alien technology, but it was man-made. However, I was told that when I witnessed the craft in November of 2008, I walked underneath it for 5 minutes, and I talked about that last time. There were extraterrestrials aboard, and that's the whole point. Is that the secret space program is a joint human extraterrestrial secret space program. So it's not like we have our own secret space program. It's being run and managed, and oftentimes even facilitated by these extraterrestrials that our governments have made deals with.
You know, that's fascinating. I didn't know you were going to bring that up. And the late Bill Cooper, who was one of the greatest conspiracy theorists of all time, in his most popular book, Behold a Pale Horse, he personally accused my great uncle, the late congressional leader George Mahon, of being the man responsible for building the so-called dumb bases, DUMB, deep underground military bases, with the idea in that book that these were not only just military bases, but they were joint alien military bases. And now we hear you talking about virtually the same thing, except instead of below ground, above ground, way, way above ground. Fascinating.
Yeah. The program is underground, and it's also out in space. They try to. The number one rule is do not disturb the beast on the farm, as in the surface population. So that's why the program is deep underground, or like at the moon base. There's several bases on the moon. Which, if you want me to jump in my timeline, I can jump in and just start going with it.
Yeah, let's start right there.
Okay, so my timeline. Last time I talked about how 2008. I described how I walked under the craft for 5 minutes, and that was the first time I was picked up. And we were taken to the Arctic first, and I remember looking on the view screen, and we lowered into a sinkhole, and there was a side chamber cut out, and the TR3, it was like, at this point it was automated. It was like a self-parking car, just lowered in and then just went into the side chamber. We were shown off the craft. We were made to change into these exactly like hospital scrubs that like a nurse would wear, like that dark teal colored hospital scrubs. So we were put in those, and then we were lined up. Like a point I want to make about the TR3, the white one is it's considered a light transport craft. It's from what I could see, there were only 4 seats on each side, like roller coaster seats that pulled out from the wall behind the pilots, and you were facing one another, and it was like a roller coaster seat, and you could turn your head slightly. It was very uncomfortable, but you could turn your head slightly, and you could just make out the view screens that the pilots were looking at. But it was, so whenever I looked at the view screen, it was just like a quick little thing like that, but it's just like trying to talk to someone or look at someone on a roller coaster ride. You can't really see, right? So you're usually just facing someone or facing the wall, and so they showed us off the craft, and there were 8 of us, and there's these already there's these groups of like 8 people that had been taken to this underground base. It was in the Arctic, and they changed it. So we get into the scrubs, and they create this line, and it's in like a hospital setting where you have these like hospital rooms and with glass walls, which a lot of hospitals in the ER emergency room, they have exactly those glass walls. And so it looked like a regular hospital. And what happened was they start marching us towards the staircase, and it like staircase goes down like that. And at the top of the staircase, before you start walking down, there was a male nurse, and he was handing out these strips, and it was almost like a Listerine breath strip that dissolves on your tongue, and it was a drug that they were giving us. So they give us these strips, you put it on your tongue, and as you're walking down the stairs, by the time you make it down to the stairs, you're already feeling it. And I'm not sure what the drug was, but it just made you very complacent. You're just like in a daze, but very complacent. But it also made you follow direction really easily. So it would actually be kind of a good drug for your first day of work if you're doing on-the-job training, because it makes you focus, but you're complacent. So anyway, so this drug is kicking in. There's another changing room station at the bottom of the stairs, and in these lockers were these jumpsuits, these tan-colored jumpsuits. And so we zip into these jumpsuits, and then we get shown into this underground hangar. It was really high ceilings. It just opened up into this. It looked like an aircraft hangar, but it was underground, and it was empty. But you had all these rows of the 8 people lined up, and they had us in these groups of 8, and just lined up. And there were very young looking. They looked like 18-year-old kids in like a much darker jumpsuit, but they had the tactical vests and the helmets, and they were the security personnel. And I've noticed that the Solar Warden security personnel, they're always in these like really dark gray jumpsuits, but they always have the tactical vest and other gear on top of the jumpsuits.
And they had weapons.
Sorry,
they had weapons.
It looked like they had like tasers, like non-lethal weapons, but they looked exactly like police tasers nowadays. And they're just standing, at attention like statues. Didn't even look at us, just looking straight ahead. So that's the first memory of being taken to this like medical facility in the Arctic, and I think it was just like a medical checkup, and it was also a launching point before they take you to the moon base. And one brief memory I have when we were taken back upstairs, I remember looking into one of those rooms with the glass walls, and there was someone on a bed, and there was these really tiny drills, like an automated drill system over top of them, like an apparatus, and it was very, very tiny drills, almost like needles, but drills that were drilling into the bones. So I think they may have been doing some of the implantation there as well. Another point I did encounter, it was behind me, but there was a tall gray at the facility. Now I don't remember actually seeing it. This is a really bizarre memory, because what happened, I've noticed that whenever they gave me the drugs or with the entrainment, I resist it, I fight it. And I was resisting this drug, and it was starting to wear off a bit. And and when we were down in that hangar, the problem was I was starting to talk to the other cadets. And when I was actually, because I was feeling a bit loopy, I was making jokes. I was almost high, so I'm making like silly little jokes. I made like one joke. I looked over at one of the young security guards. He had like slicked back hair. You could tell. They had the helmets, but you could tell like his hairline. He was all slicked. And I said, they all look like a bunch of Wesley Crushers, like from Star Trek, because he's in that like gray uniform and he has his slick back hair, 18 years old, whatever. They all look like little Wesley Crushers, just like standing at attention. So I made this like stupid Star Trek joke, and one of the guys in the group, he started like laughing really hard, and then I think I got in trouble from being disruptive, like because you're not supposed to be like making jokes. Right. Everyone's supposed to be trained. Right. So I got pulled aside, and what I'm trying to get at is I didn't actually see the gray. It's a bizarre memory. It skips ahead where when I was walking by the glass, they wanted to show me what they were doing, and so they pulled me aside, and I sit down, and as bizarre as this sounds, I realize that I'm sitting on someone's lap, and it's a giant. And I couldn't actually see the being, but it made me watch the drilling going on. And I telepathically said to it, "Are you a gray?" And it just said yes. And so it's bizarre because I don't actually remember seeing the being, but I remember being shown down the corridor, looking at the glass. They just kind of pulled me and then sat down as if I was sitting into a chair, but there was already this tall gray sitting in the chair. And I guess, I don't know, I sat on its lap, and it communicated with me, as bizarre as that sounds. So that's pretty much all I remember of that. It's pretty hazy, though, because like I was fighting the drug, but I was drugged heavily in that place. It's all pretty like
Now, on this gray, because I did an interview with Ann Reyes about a week ago, and she's had some super secret space program memories and stuff like this, and she's definitely legit. And it was also with Christopher Jacobs, and he was saying that somehow some of these beings, or they can even do this to a person. It's some kind of field where you don't want to look at them. So is that when you say that you just barely saw this gray or whatever? Do you think that it had some type of technology that was making you not want to look at it, or how?
It's possible. It's possible. It's hard to tell because I was drugged so heavily. Was it the drug that was just like making me kind of out of it? And because when they were showing me down the corridor to make me watch them doing this drilling on this person, there was 2 security personnel that had grabbed me and were showing me like where to walk, and then they kind of pushed me back as if I'm going to sit in a chair, and I just sit back without looking because I'm out of it, and then I realize I'm sitting on someone, but it's a giant. It's like a at least 7, 8 foot tall, huge person. I'm 6'3", and this person was larger than me. Like I felt.
And you were
small.
Sitting on top of them?
I was like, it's like sitting on its lap. Like to put this into perspective, it was almost like, I guess how like a 5 foot tall woman would feel sitting in like a basketball player's lap.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like just being like, and since I'm a 6'3" man, it was the first time sitting in someone's lap as an adult, because I'm 19, I'm fully grown. So it was the first time sitting as like a man and feeling like I'm a child sitting in someone's lap.
Wow.
And it was bizarre. And then I got this creeped out feeling, and I said to it telepathically, "Are you a gray?" And it just responded telepathically in a really monotone voice, "Yes." And then that's it. Because the fear at that moment.
Did you ever see his face or his head?
No.
But you were literally. Did you accidentally fall into his lap, or did they want to try to put you in his lap to see how big he was, or without seeing him?
They forced me into his lap. Like they pulled me back as if to sit me into a chair, but it wanted me to sit on its lap as I was watching the drilling. And another thing I was able to remember was when I got the creeped out feeling, and I tried to move, and I couldn't. I was paralyzed. Because when I realized I was sitting on someone's lap, my instinct was to get up out of the person's lap, right?
Of course.
And then I realized I was completely paralyzed, could not move, like not an inch, and so it was a weird feeling because the reaction. Obviously, imagine you're kind of like out of it at a party. You go to sit down, you accidentally sit on someone's lap on a couch, and you didn't even see them. You're like, whoa! Your reaction. It's just like your body's like, oh, sorry, my body went to do that. Yeah, my body went to do that. And nothing happened. So the mind and the body, there's an interruption there.
Oh,
and that was a weird feeling when you think you're going to react and you expect to react, and then nothing happens.
Wow. That's fascinating. And so is that the only time you've seen a gray, or did you see any when you were kids or a kid or anything? Or
Well, like to continue on the timeline, there were different kinds of grays I saw throughout my service. There's many different types. I saw small ones, mid-sized ones, and then the tall grays. I even saw a tall gray with a long nose, a long-nosed gray, and I can talk about that when I get to that point in the timeline. But to just keep it going here.
Let's do that.
So from there, we're taken to the moon, and it was in a crater. There's a little dome in the crater that opened up. And so the TR-3 lowers it into it. We're shown off the craft. It's very similar to what happened at the medical place in terms of being shown down into a corridor where you had these groups of like 8 or 10 people lined up down this corridor. They're standing at ease. So you're standing at ease, just staring at the wall, and you're just told to wait. And you're just standing there for a long time. And as you're standing there, more and more people, flights are coming in. And they're gathering all the cadets. And so eventually everyone's gathered, and then we're shown into this classroom. And this is where the orientation begins. And I talked a little bit about this last time, about how on these projector screens, there's a female instructor, but the audio is completely gone, completely deleted. All I can remember from it is like, it would be like being a deaf person sitting in a classroom, and you're looking at like the overhead, and the teacher's talking, but she's not signing. There's no, there's no subtitles or whatever, closed captioning. So my memory of the orientation at the moon base is is like a deaf person sitting in a movie theater and there was no closed captioning. So you get an impression of what happened, but you can't really, describe the plot completely.
That's some fascinating technology. It's like they removed the audio from your memory. Wow.
Absolutely. So that makes it really hard. So what I've been able to pull, though, just from the images and the instructor just talking without, saying anything, is what I talked about last time. I'm glad I got that out of the way so I can continue with the timeline. I had to do with the megahertz levels, the sliding scale they're showing us where, like, you have human life resonating between 60 and 70 megahertz, and then this bell curve and it starts to arc towards 350 megahertz, and then that's where you had the 4D, but physical fourth density physical beings, and they had they're beautiful diagrams, these overheads that would kind of converge and expand upon this point, and they're teaching us dimensional ecology having to do with megahertz level to prep us to understand not only the ecology of the physical dimension we're in, but also how you can have physical beings in the same what we would think of as dimension or reality, but the megahertz levels determines their stage of evolution and their abilities. So fourth density beings like the tall grays, these are physical beings. They're considered fourth density. They're resonating at a much higher megahertz level, and that's why they can do the entrainment. And this is why once you get to fourth density, all these beings are telepathic because they can send thought forms by looking at each other. They can actually once you're in about a 6-foot range of your auric field kind of converges, and you make eye contact, and the sensation with the entrainment is like you're getting pulled into their eyes, and you can convey entire thought forms. Like you can describe a whole movie with just your impression and your thought of the movie, and the person would know exactly what happened in the movie you saw. And you're just looking at each other. So that's how these beings communicate. So they're trying to prep us for that, and so I have a couple fragmented memories. It's not like it was a one-day course. We were there for a while. It was like a daily thing where you'd go into this room, like a regular-looking classroom, and this female instructor would, continue to teach us about this stuff. But something that happened, I feel this was on the moon as well. I have a shared recall with KJ, a lady by the name of KJ Scoops, and we did a roundtable together with Anthony Zender last October, and after I went public, she reached out to me because at the time I didn't know who the blonde girl in the underground barracks was. This was on the moon base, and what it was like this underground part of the moon base, but I wasn't man-made. This was deep underground, and it had like Mayan-looking ruins on the moon or underground, but it looked very Mayan-looking with these like side chambers cut out and like this artwork, and it was all engraved. And because when I went to Mexico later on in 2009, at the resort they had kind of like the Maya-looking stuff, and I'm like, that's like the underground barracks. So anyway, they had these cots set up, and it was just before lights out, and I was talking to this blonde girl on the edge of the bed, and she was adamant that we're going to remember this, and so she was like freaking out, and what happened was when the lights went out, and then the memory comes back where the lights come on again, so the next day, she was missing, and there was 2 other people that were missing from our group too. And so, again, they line us out in the corridor, and I say to the commanding officer, like, where did those people go? And he told me to, I want to get this right, because this is actually one of the times I actually remember what he said to me. He said, fall in line, it's none of your business where they went, keep your mouth shut. That's what he said. And I never saw them again, and I always wondered what happened to that blonde girl. And
did he say that? Did he tell you to fall out of love? Is that what?
No, sorry, fall in line. sorry, I got my throat here. Fall in line, like as in, because I like stepped forward, like we were at ease, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like stepped my body language. I took a stance towards him, like a normal person would like turn to someone and be like, "Hey," like ask a question, and he's like, "We were supposed to stand still, look straight ahead."
Now, Kevin,
so that was a no-no.
This is a valid question, and obviously you had a romantic type of care for this person, and you cared for this person as a human being. But obviously the audience is going to want to know for like scientific reasons, or I'm wondering if there's some type of genetic display. In other words, did you have sex with the girl?
No, not at all. This
okay.
was
that's a fair question.
Fully clothed. We were fully clothed. We're always in these jumpsuits, and there was at least 16 of us in this room with these cots set up, and it was boys and girls. It was like a co-ed sleeping quarters they had set up.
But you were never alone with her.
No.
Oh, okay,
there was at least 14 other people around us. It was a shared sleeping barracks. I call it the underground barracks because it was just they set up these army cots in this chamber that they didn't really have a use for, so they just used the space and they just set up this sleeping quarters, a shared accommodation. So KJ, she was being very combative, and she was trying to plant seeds in people, saying, "We're going to remember this. We're going to remember this," like planting seeds in the subconscious. So they pulled her right away in the middle of the night, and from her perspective, like I never knew what happened to that girl, and so after it went public, KJ, she had the same memory, and so she reached out to me. She said, "I think I might have been the blonde girl," and then she said that from her perspective, she was taken into isolation, and for 2 months she was put into a cell in isolation, and then she was traded to a different faction.
Was the girl that you were bonding with somehow? It was KJ?
Yeah, it was KJ.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is wow. And
her and I have talked about that before in interviews.
And KJ has asked me not to reveal the name of the group, but I think it's okay for the audience members to know that you and me and KJ and some other people are in a group where we. But of course, I've never heard this. This is earth-shattering information right there. Yeah, wow. I got mad.
Yeah, so that's now. And here's another interesting thing too: is her and I both remember Dave Marrow being there too. Now, Dave, I know Dave. He's in the chat group. I know Dave, and I absolutely love the guy. He's an inspiration. He's such a strong person. And at the same time, because he was in this the actual super soldier, he got traded off the actual super soldier, augmented soldier program. The guy's been through. Like I went through a communications program. I was put into an educational program. He was put into an experimentation augmentation program. So he went through horrific things, and it's amazing that the guy can even form a sentence and lead a life, let alone talk about this stuff. So I have the utmost respect for him. But his memory, it's interesting. It comes in, it phases in and out. I've noticed because I've talked to him about this, and he's been like, yeah, he's like, yeah. And it starts to click. He's like, yeah, and you know what I mean. And then you'll talk to him again, and he won't remember. And
yeah.
So it's like, okay.
Yeah. I like the hell out of Dave Marrow, man. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So KJ remembers him being there. I remember him being there. The point I was trying to make, because his memory kind of like comes in and out sometimes. I'm not sure if he's going to remember this, but he was one of the people that got removed as well. And he was sitting off to the side in the corner, and he was just watching everybody and scanning everybody. I think the reason why he got removed is because he was really absorbing what KJ was saying and watching her very closely, and he was just like soaking up everything she was saying like a sponge. So they were worried again that subconscious seed would get planted and would cause him to remember things. And it's possible that the only reason why he can remember things and at all is because KJ actually planted that subconscious command that you're going to remember this no matter what. And then no matter what is all the horrific things that he went through. Right?
Dave Marrow really heard what she was saying and took that to heart and really helped him break through the memories and everything. And for the listeners that don't know, Dave Marrow he's a man lives in the UK of great stature. He's a very large man. He's very kind and gentle soul, but he's also been a warrior in many aspects. He's a talented musician. He's also been featured on the Basis Project a couple of times. He's been featured on this show as well. And he's in our group.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He's made so much progress since that first Basis Series interview, and I think eventually, if he continues on his healing path, I think eventually he'll get all his memories back eventually, and I would like to see him years from now sit down in an interview and just, like, you know what I mean? Like, go over this, like, boom, 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 boom. I think he'll get there.
Yeah, and he's definitely on a positive vibe, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I remember KJ and Dave, and then from there, moving up on the timeline, they facilitated a portion of our training on Mars, and they outsourced the training to one of the Mars colonies, and it was as a facilitator. And because the Solar Warden Navy faction with the British